Hello and welcome to Guests collab with the Glasgow University Food Co-operative. It's a dessert special cook-along where we will be cooking rhubarb crumble or, depending on the availability of rhubarb, for some of our hosts today, apples or pear crumble. So first of all, I think it will be good. Okay, I think what we should do is begin chopping, but while we do that, would everyone like to go round and introduce themselves? I'm Thalia, my pronouns are she, her, I work at Guest. I'll hand over to Aimee, if you'd like to introduce yourself and talk about if you have any particular role at the food co-op.
I'm Aimee and I'm the president of the food co-op. I don't know if Hannah, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi, I'm Hannah, my pronouns are she, her, and I am technically the volunteer coordinator for the food co-op, but obviously this year we haven't been able to interact with our volunteers as much as we'd have liked. But yeah, I'm really excited for this crumble today. I will pass on to Juliet.
Hi, I'm Juliet. I'm the social secretary, but I feel like this year we've all been social secretaries. I am in second year and I'm studying life science. Little fun fact. I'll pass you on to Dounia.
Hello, my name is Dounia, use she, her pronouns, and I am the treasurer this year with the food co-op. I will pass on to Emily.
Hi, I'm Emily, pronouns are she, her. I'm the secretary for the co-op this year, and I'm doing a master's in English.
I feel like it's in true cooperative fashion that you're all here. Like as a full committee. So I feel like maybe that's a good place to start, is what does cooperative organizing look like for the food co-op, and maybe how does that relate to wider cooperative ethoses? Just to jump in there, by the way, I've chopped one piece of rhubarb. Don't forget about the cooking part of the cook-along, folks. That's the beauty of it. So I'll leave this open for anybody to jump in and talk a little bit about co-ops.
Yeah, so co-ops are traditionally non-hierarchical. So in that sense, the Glasgow Uni Food Co-op isn't fully non-hierarchical because we do have a committee, but that's more to do with university regulations and being affiliated with the SRC. But yeah, ideally, everyone contributes kind of equally to decision making and things that happen within the food co-op. Yeah, I don't know if anyone has anything else to add.
I think Hannah's point about being affiliated to the SRC means that we have to have certain roles. I feel like, because I've been at the food co-op for now 3 years, I've seen how different committees have negotiated being affiliated with the SRC and having to have those formal roles like president, treasurer, secretary, and also trying to be as flat as possible in terms of hierarchy. I feel like it is an active effort to be non-hierarchical, and it's easy to fall back into those patterns. Like if you've been elected president, then you're going to act as the president. And it is a conscious effort to be like, okay, this week I'm going to take on a role of finance, even if I haven't been elected for that position. And I think we can definitely make progress on that. It's something that we always have to be reminded of. Okay, power is concentrated around some certain people and knowledge is concentrated around certain people. How do we try to go away from that and pass on the knowledge to the rest of the members? We're working on that constantly.
It's really interesting in terms of how does a cooperative structure work within a university structure, which obviously is by its nature hierarchical, and particularly kind of businesses, university businesses, and obviously they have their different sections, that's how it goes. If you kind of have to have these titles as a formal requirement for affiliation, then how does that, is there a way to get around that in your day-to-day running? Would you say that these things are by nature kind of opposed because it's a cooperative structure within a hierarchical structure? I'm just interested in that.
Yeah, I mean, in normal running of the co-op, we would have kind of working groups or task groups who are in charge of different parts of the co-op, and anyone can kind of get involved with those and can kind of dip in and out where they please, kind of thing. So that's kind of a way that we try and involve as many people as possible. And so I guess the kind of positions that we hold are more just organizational and for affiliation with the SRC, but as much as possible we would try and act on the same level as the volunteers who help with the veg boxes and distribution.
Yeah, and it has been a shame as well this year, but there's also been other things, such as like the Zero Waste Cafe at QMU. So hopefully that's something in the future that can happen. If anyone's watching this in the future that's interested in joining, then please get in touch. Sorry, just a little promo.
No, we love that. That's exactly what we're here for. Promote those causes, get on it.
All our meetings are open, or like they were definitely at the start of the semester. And as we realized that we couldn't act in our normal way of how the food co-op would normally run, we didn't have as many meetings. But yeah, normally our meetings would be open to anyone who wanted to get involved or like hear what was happening. So that's another way to kind of flatten the structure as well.
How's everyone getting on with their fruit prep? Just to check in.
I have 2 more rhubarb to cut.
I've done all my rhubarb. I thought I had way too much, but I've just used it all, which is bonkers to me. Where does it all go? Okay, so while we're on the rhubarb focus stage of our cooking, and I'm sure we can get a bit more into talking about co-ops later, and the potentials of co-ops and how they go. But maybe now we could talk a little bit about rhubarb and why we chose rhubarb for this meal or this dessert. Any words on rhubarb from anybody?
Sure. So I did some research on rhubarb. So it is in season, which is why we chose it for March. And it also has a lot of it's a vegetable, technically not fruit. So it has a lot of nutrients for you.
Little plug-in time again. But so I have 2 hats. I have the food co-op hat and the guest hat. And as the guest hat, we have community gardens and it's the start of growing season. So one thing we're going to plant and hopefully harvest soonish is rhubarb. So if you're interested in having your own rhubarb that you don't pay for an extortionate amount for, join us. Community gardens are open to anybody if you like gardening. So it totally ties into like the whole cooperative model. It's about getting connected to the soil, to your environment, learning how like seasonal eating works, and it's really, really cool.
At my house where my parents live, when we moved there was actually like a huge patch of just like wild rhubarb growing in the garden. So it really does just kind of thrive naturally I'm sure it was planted there at one point, but it just like thrived every year and we didn't do anything to it. So yeah, it really grows well in like British soil, rainy weather. It's pretty sturdy vegetable.
Yeah, my grandparents have rhubarb as well. In terms of talking about cooperative ethoses there, Dounia, and also not having to spend all your money on rhubarb to eat it, reminds me, okay, so I today, in honor of collabing with you guys, bought this Suma demerara sugar, but it did cost me £3.65 for 500 grams, which is very sad. That's a lot. I guess their money goes to, I'm sure, places we can see, like, or at least it's going somewhere in the supply chain that makes it good. But it was leading me to think that I know, as in kind of previous years of running as the food co-op, you try to keep kind of costs down and keep it as an accessible point for students. If anyone has anything to say about cheaply available cooperative food, I'd love to hear it.
Well, I was just going to say that today I actually went on the hunt for rhubarb, and I was just talking about it in the chat with the food co-op, and we realised rhubarb is not that cheap. It's actually quite expensive, but it could have been probably because it's early on in March. And so even though it is like seasonal, maybe it's too early in the season for them to be harvested. So I managed to find one in M&S, even though that's very controversial because M&S is quite expensive. But I managed to find a can for £1, and I'm hoping that will do me for the rhubarb crumble.
Yeah, I couldn't find rhubarb in the shops near me, so I'm using apples today, and I feel like apples are pretty much grown all year round in the UK. Correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah, so, and very, very cheap to come by if you're looking for an alternative. But I think that's the great thing about something like a crumble. If you have any, like in the summer, if you have any leftover berries or any fruit that's going a bit off, you just can chuck it in a crumble. And you can also like combine different fruits. So like, I know like apple and berry crumble is really nice as well. So it's a very versatile dish.
To go back a little on like cheap co-op like living, it's definitely a tough balance to strike, because even if like, so one thing to take into account is cooperative products are probably like, you pay for the quality, you pay for like fair labor, for local production and that kind of thing, so there is going to be probably more costs involved with producing the product. But at the same time, like, it's definitely like you have to adjust to your own budget. I think beyond looking at, okay, like, is my product like locally produced and stuff like that, it's also important to acknowledge everyone's own conditions. Like, I bought rhubarb that was like fully packed in plastic. It's really not great, and but you have to do with what you have. So sometimes it's better maybe like to go for something more affordable, like apples, instead of having like a overly plastic packaged rhubarb, even if it comes from like an organic farm or something like that. So it's like, it's a constant negotiation with yourself. And an important thing is like, avoid blaming the consumer. I think part of it is also to recognize that there are global like trends that you can't really avoid. Like, in an economy where everything is globalized, sometimes you have to go with what is produced globally in a way, and try to do your own things, but at your own pace as well. Like, I think it's very important to have compassion towards yourself, towards people around you and your community.
Yeah, I think that's such a good point. And just, yeah, not beating yourself up for like what's available in the supermarkets, if it's like plastic packaged or it's not fair trade or things like that. Yeah, I even went to Locavore today, which is where we normally get the food co-op veg from, and even they didn't have rhubarb, so I guess yeah, it's not kind of available everywhere. But and it's also, I think those kind of things are affected by like the season as well, and how good the harvesting is and all that. So you can't always win.
Yeah, I guess it's just about trying to find like a happy medium that you can live with. I just want to mention it. I'm using pears instead of rhubarb because that was the only thing I could find. Yeah, they're in season, or they were in season in February. So maybe they've been around since then. This is only early March.
Yeah, seasonality is so difficult at the end of winter. I feel like there's like, you get leftovers from whatever grows in winter, but they're no longer really in season, but then it's too early for spring stuff. So it's like, apart from like old potatoes, not much is in season. So it's definitely like, what do I do now? It's definitely not the funniest season.
It's kind of like, that's the thing, and I think all sustainability conversations is like, don't blame the individual, and like in moderation, and like you need to strike a balance. I don't know, our food system is so removed from seasonality that it's to a point that like, maybe that's a very West End thing, like avocados getting donated to a food bank because no one's bought them. But yeah, I don't know, it's just funny, like, and it kind of makes it, I think, feel a little bit like, why am I going to restrict myself to eating season where all I can eat is like spring greens this month, when actually like there are too many avocados in the West End for people to eat, like they're already here. I'm like being like, whatever about seasonal eating, like, haha, that's not what I'm saying. But that's just how I've accidentally built myself into this corner. Anyway, on that note, does anyone want to say anything else about seasonal eating? Also, while I'm rambling, how's everyone doing with their fruit?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, are we putting it in the oven for like 10 minutes?
Yeah. If everyone's ready.
Okay, I'm gonna put my apples in the oven.
Maybe a last like comment on seasonal fruit is just to keep in mind like that different things are different seasons, like depending where you are. So like obviously we're coming from a UK perspective, but like when I was back home in the US, like we never grow rhubarb. So like I had no idea what rhubarb even looked like until I came here. Yeah, you kind of just have to look online and see what's in season where you are.
Yeah, I was also going to say in terms of like shopping seasonally for your fruit and veg, it's also depends where I can get it from. So like closest to me are like big supermarkets, or there is the more organic store, but that's a bit more expensive, especially for like people who are students. So yeah, I think it's just kind of interesting if you are shopping from a supermarket, just to look at where your food comes from, to have that awareness, like even if you can't necessarily change that, but just to kind of understand the food chains that you're eating from.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point. Like even if necessarily where you buy your food doesn't allow you to shop locally or seasonally, like I think it's very true. Like just having that awareness and paying attention to it, I feel like is still important if you can. And now most supermarkets do, don't they? You can see where you're buying things. The other thing I was going to say was it's also interesting. Like I wonder how much like, because obviously like southern England is a very different climate to like North Scotland. So I really wonder like seasonal eating probably is a lot deeper than the like websites we happen to like find. Like I always look on like vegetariansociety.com and they're like seasonal for the UK, la la la, and I'm like, is this true for Glasgow? But I don't know how to find out anything more specific. What was your seasonal kind of action with food veg boxes as the co-op?
Actually, okay, I feel like I'm qualified to speak about this because I used to do back in the day the deliveries like 2 years ago. And so the way we operated is every week we received a spreadsheet from Locavore with everything they had, like all the veg and the farms they were coming from. So at the top of the list, you'd have everything from the Greater Glasgow area / like central belt of Scotland, then wider Scotland, then UK, and then last was outside of the UK. So they also have like, I don't know, avocados from Mexico. But we tried to stay within the UK. Sometimes we ordered from like England to change up a little, but essentially we had a base of stuff that was from local farms, from Glaswegian farms or like central belt of Scotland farms. That would usually be potatoes, onions, carrots, the good old, the holy trio. And then we also expanded to, especially in the winter, we expanded to English products because even if it's not as local, we also understand that you do want to eat stuff that's a bit exciting. And like we tried to always put something exciting in the box, like purple kale or stuff like that, and stuff that isn't produced just like around the corner, to make it also a bit more appealing. And it's probably better to have more signups with some local products, some a bit less local, than have like just like the good old bland potatoes and have like maybe 5 people ordering every week.
Another interesting toss up there. I feel like we should start the rubbing in process. We need 200 grams of flour and 110 grams of butter. Is that true?
Yeah. That's
I remembered that. Incredible.
Never done that. How'd you go about it?
The rubbing in?
Yes.
Okay, so this actually gives me a good opportunity to this. It was a discussion about seasonal food. Now it's a tutorial. So I have my flour. I have my butter. I've never had this before. Naturally's vegan block. Exciting. I've never seen, because you know how usually vegan spreads are like soft. So I thought this would be good for the rubbing in process. So basically, I've never done this with vegan butter either, so let's see. Basically, I'm estimating that this is going to be 110 grams. So I'm chopping it. So basically, you pop it in. Probably it's best to be in cubes. So I'm going to cube it. Okay, so I've now cubed my butter in here. So now basically the key aspects here, look, this is almost a good visual representation. The key tools here are your fingertips. I think I have a cooking show, I think. The key tools are your fingertips. But basically, it's just because you want to use like just the tips of your fingers. And you like squidge your butter in between. And you just kind of squidge it and massage your butter into your flour until it resembles breadcrumbs. Okay. After that brief flour bread crumble tutorial interlude, because that's the thing, you can use rubbing in for so many things. Like you can do this for scones, la 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 la. It's a very versatile skill. Now back on track. Okay, so we've been speaking a little bit about Locavore there and mentioned. So I'm interested to know, what is the relationship between, like, on the record, what is the relationship? Oh, like, and now it's like a scandal interview. What is the relationship between Locavore and the Glasgow Uni Food Co-op? What's the romance? What's the story? How does it work? You get a list with everything and you say what you want and you try and keep it interesting to get people to join in. But what else?
So essentially we get that spreadsheet every week, and like I think Locavore delivers to several different groups. So they send that list out to several different groups. And then we just decide how, like, the quantity of each we wanna get. We usually just like see with the committee or the people who are involved with the orders what they would like to have. So it's like a collaborative effort as well. And then we email them back, and they actually go around with a little car and deliver over a day. I think it used to be Thursdays or something like that. So you have to be like out. We used to be based in the Wellington church before everything closed out. And like, I remember like having study sessions in the library and being like, receiving a text from the Locavore driver being like, hey, your veg is here. And then having to carry like 10 kilos of potatoes into the church and like going back and forth. It is a very fun activity. It is also very good to have volunteers with you, because it was not fun to carry 10 kilos of potatoes every week. But yeah, and then we did the distributions the day after that. So we put all the veg into, like, we just split it into however many boxes we would give out, and be open like for like 4 hours or something, and let people just come and pick up their boxes in their own time. Yeah. But then, yeah, in terms of like the relationship with Locavore, it's just, they're just our provider. I don't think we've done anything very formal with them. We're not business partners, I think. But yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess that's also a good point about how we use the Wellington church space. It's like obviously kind of feeds into that community aspect of like cooperatives. Because yeah, as far as I know, like they would lend us a space, and they still actually have some of our equipment, like our scales and stuff there. But yeah, it's just kind of a nice way to like involve different spaces and different people as well.
I was gonna say the Wellington Church also do other stuff. Like they like do food packages. At least I think it's on a Wednesday and maybe a Monday they have like free food stuff.
Yeah, we shared some of their like posts and stuff. That's kind of the main thing we've been able to do this year, is just to share stuff on our social media to promote like initiatives that were happening around Glasgow that kind of aligned with our values and stuff. But yeah, they were doing because they normally have a cafe, but that had to close, so they started doing like free frozen meals on Mondays and Wednesdays that people could go and collect. And yeah, their food and their cafe, when it is open, is all like not for profit.
It's nice. It's very, for any previous fans of the crypt, it's just a wonderful place. When you're rubbing in butter to flour, a good tip for like when you want the big bits to rise up is like give it a shake, and then all the big bits will like come to the top, and then you can squish them. And then see, now I can see everyone doing it. Yes.
That actually works.
One question I do have, which is interesting. So let me just reference a previous Cookalong. So 2 weeks ago, I did a Cookalong with Mags Hall. It was incredible. I'm still happy about it. And she was talking about how the food system is like a different sort of market and system, and it requires specific treatment, which is where kind of a lot of food sovereignty principles come from, because it's not just like any other product, because we need it. So I was wondering how that maybe kind of comes along with cooperative principles. Why is it that perhaps a co-op is the best way to deal with food production or food supply, because it is a product of this special nature? I'm now going to go and wash my hands now I've asked that, so over to you.
I guess I can talk since I'm done with the crumble part. So when we were basically, yeah, cooperatives in general, not just for food, but yeah, for like housing and everything. But they tend to help with under or overproduction, so you only have as much as you need. And not for ours, because we buy our veg, but some of them you grow it too. And so that helps also with cutting down like fuel emissions and that sort of thing. Yeah, it's basically the idea is that you're having a community-based food. And so it's not about profit or about, yeah, the economy. It's about like the consumer and the people running it are the same. So it's more equal and it's more about what we need rather than what we want to sell, if that makes sense.
Definitely. I feel like it also ties with the fact that food is the intersection of economics, politics, culture as well, which we don't really talk about, I feel, in the global scheme of production. Like last year I attended an event, like I think it was like a food coalition launch in Canada anyway, and a few people had mentioned how like when they arrived at uni they were like, what in the world is a cauliflower, like, and it's like where do you find stuff from your home culture, like can you find it, and like how do you learn about the local production, because it's not only about eating, it's also about knowing like what people who've lived on the land have produced, what kind of traditions they've developed around it. We can reference back to the haggis Cookalong, for example, where we did a nice mix of like nachos and haggis that was delicious. So yeah, like I feel like food is so special because it ties into so many different realms, like very hard politics realms, but also like very intimate relations with culture and personal experience. And I feel like co-ops take all of that into account. It's not just cold-hearted, you pay in cash, you go eat, and it's just like a side note to your day. It's actually like, it's part of your livelihoods, etc.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think right now, and kind of Emily, from going on from what you were saying, the way that food production is, to make it efficient, it's like, okay, we're deliberately going to overproduce so that we have enough for everyone that possibly would want to buy this, and then we're deliberately going to end up with surplus food, and like that's fine because it's actually cheaper for our business model if we're a big corporation to do that. And I think that's like a major problem for food sustainability. So it's interesting that food co-ops, I didn't know that they don't operate, or that they offered a solution to that, in that it's just about, it's because of its cooperative nature, it doesn't have that problem. Yeah, cool. All right, where's everybody at, fruit wise, crumble wise, topping wise?
It's made my crumble.
I was wondering, is anyone going to add oats to this, or?
Yeah, I was thinking of adding some oats. It might be quite nice for a bit of texture.
Yeah, I've added oats as well.
How many did you add?
I just kind of poured it in.
Yeah, I guess so.
Juliet, I have the same oats as you.
Oh, so many matches. Great.
Oh, snap. First, I would like to hand over to Hannah George to talk about cooperatives and communal eating. And then afterwards, I'll hand over to Juliet for charities versus co-ops.
Yeah, no, I was just going to talk a bit about how the values of cooperative organising or food co-ops also ties into the idea of kind of communal eating and food as shared enterprise, I guess, that trying to make it as kind of equal for everyone as possible. And it's really cool that we're all communally cooking right now together, albeit virtually. But yeah, that sharing of knowledge and sharing of resources, maybe in pre or post-COVID times, will be more possible. But yeah, just sharing knowledge about like where food is available and trying to make it as cooperative and accessible as possible for the community, everyone in the community.
And so with cooperatives having those kind of positive social aims, or have the potential to have that, how does that then relate to a co-op versus a charity? Over to Juliet.
Yeah, so basically, I guess a co-op's kind of more, if you participate in it, you gain the benefits. So if you participate by, you know, getting a veg box from the food co-op, you're gaining the veg box. But if it's a charity, for instance, it's kind of more for people who can't access those things easily. So I guess like a food bank, people will come over and get things for free, but you know, it's for like a good cause. But for a food co-op, you know, you're just getting things for more affordable prices, and I guess that's the benefit. So they are different, but they also are similar.
Yeah, I was just going to kind of add to that, like going back to what Thalia was talking about, food sovereignty and kind of having that agency in like where you can purchase your food from, and food should be accessible and affordable for everyone. So I think food co-ops are trying to offer that solution so that people don't have to rely on food banks, trying to fix those holes in the food system as best as possible, because people have sort of like an active participatory role in the kind of distribution of food.
I'd say the main difference between like a cooperative and a food bank is, or like not necessarily a food bank, but a charity, is their approach to like community versus individualism. Like charities are very much rooted into an individualist economy where you get individual donors, like kind of relieving the conscience, or like trying to participate into this a one person to one person relationship. Whereas a co-op is really about shifting that entire like paradigm. Maybe that's a difficult word, but like this entire like situation where we want to move away and we want to kind of emancipate ourselves from that system where it's just like helpless individuals, and that ties with Hannah's mention of like agency. It's about really giving the decision making to the people, and it's about like people negotiating with themselves, like, okay, what price is an affordable price for everybody? It's not just like me, myself, oh, I can afford that, therefore anyone else can afford that. It's about coming together and like talking about the different perspectives we might have on the food system, and try to work around the flaws of like of the current like current food distribution system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's the interesting thing, is that I think there's kind of an idea, right, that like food banks, for example, like are very necessary at the moment, but they're not solving the problems which lead people to need food banks, and they're very much like a plaster over a bigger problem. Whereas co-ops, I suppose, are trying to make things more accessible completely. And also I think that's a really important element of kind of food and eating, is that people can be involved in the decisions which affect them, which totally is not at work in the charity model. And I think that's a big thing that should be incorporated more. So if kind of co-ops can offer that, that is excellent. How's everybody doing in terms of popping their crumbles into the oven?
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, it's gonna put mine in.
A really small one, because I realised I didn't have a lot of rhubarb. So it's just a one person crumble.
Maybe 2 small crumbles, 2 small portions. Comparatively, my crumble is massive.
My crumble is pretty big. I think I had a slightly smaller tray than I would like, so I think I have a really thick layer of crumble. But I'm hoping that's okay.
Mine's quite like skinny but wide.
Mine's pretty dense, but it's okay. I have 7 flatmates, so hopefully they can help me.
I think I'll buy some more rhubarb and make another one, or maybe save this for...
I've got extra crumble too. Maybe if people are watching later, make less crumble.
I just poured it all on, and I think I have like this much crumble, but...
More crumble the better, honestly. I love that part.
Yeah, I love a thick layer of crumble. Like, I hate when it's just all the fruit and no crumble.
Yeah.
To make for like another one as well, if you just keep it in Tupperware.
This is actually a good point though, in terms of if you have spare crumble mix, what can you do with it? So I think a lot of the components are the same as scones. Like if you add an egg or like a flax egg or some milk or whatever, and check your quantities, and maybe some baking powder, you might end up with a scone, like who knows. Other things that it could be used in, I feel like if you just baked it by yourself, like if you're a fan of having like yogurt for breakfast, if you just kind of put it in the oven for 5 minutes, it could be a quite nice caramelized yogurt topper. The other thing is probably granola, like it would go quite well in a granola mixture, like if you mixed in more oats, some fruit, whatever else. So if you don't fancy a second crumble, these are all options that I have just made up on the spot, so they may or may not work, but they are options.
I like the granola idea.
How do we feel about embarking on our custard journey?
I'm so ready. So I just measured my oat milk for the custard. Yeah, I don't know what kind of oat milks you guys have, but I just have this Oatly, which is probably the classic one. But Lidl do a much cheaper version of oat milk, which I recommend.
And I was just gonna say, before when you were talking about making things more accessible and just the differences between food co-ops and charities, meeting with Glasgow City Food Plan, and like we were able to share how we felt about the food plan, which like for people that don't know was just trying to aim to make it to be like more like food to be more accessible and more sustainable. So it is like a good thing that it seems to be like on their agenda to make food more accessible and sustainable. There was also talking a lot about food poverty and how to help with that.
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring up the Glasgow City Food Plan, because in fact they're like in the final consultation bit stages now, where they're bringing together all the consultation responses.
We filled out the consultation on behalf of the food co-op. So yeah, kind of focusing on the aspects of it that related to community and food distribution. So that was something we were able to do last semester, because we've been looking for ways that we can still stay involved with food and how it relates to the community of Glasgow and Glasgow Uni and outside of Glasgow Uni for veg box distributions. So yeah, that was something that was really fun to get involved with as well.
What are your kind of plans for the future? Global situation has put a stop to your plans. So what are your plans moving forward?
Well, I was going to say, like, we definitely have tried, although we haven't been able to do the veg box distributions, maybe we can just first talk about what we have done this year as well, because I think we've definitely tried to create more presence on social media to engage people with what we've been doing. So we've been sharing like seasonal recipes each week, which has been really fun and creative, and then just kind of trying to connect with other kind of food groups in Glasgow Uni or in the wider Glasgow community, and support them and support their initiatives and kind of create those connections. So definitely some of those are things that we'd want to like strengthen going into next year. So I think we'll be having like hopefully our AGM sometime this spring to see where the food co-op is going next as things start to open up. But yeah, we had some chats with various people. So for example, setting up a kind of like, I can't remember what it's called, but like a low waste cafe cafe in the Queen Margaret Union for students to kind of help them to like provide free or like affordable meals and like lunches for students. So yeah, things like that as well. And also, I don't know if Dounia, you said we were going to talk about the eco hub and things like that as well.
Yeah, that's a long-term guest plan, but there is a plan to basically open up as many sustainable spaces on campus as possible, and part of that would be having a space where various societies can do sustainable activities and promote sustainability on campus. The Food Co-op has been looking to like expand a little and do a bit more than just a bi-monthly like veg bag. So part of it would be to open up a shop, a little sustainability shop, and that could be in the short term, maybe in the QMU, and in the longer term, have that sustainability space where the Food Co-op would be kind of on a regular basis and interact with other societies and expand both on the material deliveries, but also have more trainings about food politics, the like community side of food and that kind of things, so that it's not just about you get membership to the co-op, you get your veg and you leave, but you actually like engage with the rest of the student community. I feel like that's what we've been trying to do.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Yeah, as a long-term plan, you say long-term plan, just for anybody listening, I don't know, maybe this is a bad thing to do, I'm like, because I know it's very complex and there's much to consider, but when would you be hoping for, do you think? I say you, I'm like we, because I'm like guest.
Like, so COVID, as long as COVID is a thing, I don't think it's realistic that it happens, because the university would have to fall on its feet before it moves into creating and opening new spaces. So realistically, first semester of the fall of 2021, like September, is not going to happen. I think optimistically second, like this time next year, or the fall or the autumn of 2022, I think is a realistic time to hope for that space to open up. It is part of the university's sustainability strategy. Therefore, it is going to happen. I'm very confident. But maybe for the graduating students among us, unfortunately, it's not going to be our time, but a good excuse to come back for masters later on.
How's everyone's custard going? I've brought my milk to the boil and I've got my cornflour mix.
I also added some yellow food colouring, which might have been a mistake because I don't have turmeric.
The recipe said like yellow food colouring or turmeric, so
okay.
Yeah, you're absolutely fine. I was just trying to stick with that, you know, the organic ethos, whatever it is, with turmeric. My custard is looking great. I'm so excited. I've never made custard.
I've been thinking about co-ops a lot recently, and because I've joined the housing co-op, which is a really, really cool co-op as well. Woo! And it's so interesting to see how we still have so many steps to take in order, like everyone, it's a learning curve. Like you can never be like 100% like cooperative, if that makes sense. But it's like, it's just so complicated to implement a truly cooperative system. And like if you just zone out for a second, then like hierarchy is back in the organizing mode. It's like I don't really know how to not let that happen, especially like it's very difficult to train new people as well into that system, because we have to unlearn so many things. And like I wish we were taught to cooperate earlier on. Like it's kind of silly, but I feel like we see like, maybe that's a bit like commonplace and cliche, but like there's like we understand a lot of social relations as a competition, or like you have like a specific role and that's your role, and then like do you do better than someone else or less well? And I think it's important to just like try to deconstruct those hierarchies in the way you see relations, social relations in various groups. And like I've reflected a lot about how I personally like operate in societies and my job and with my friends even. And I think, yeah, like co-ops also bring that kind of balance in the wider sense.
The power of co-ops, I feel like that's what we're learning. Like you guys are like, let's try out this, and then it's like, oh my gosh. Like
yeah, just adding to what Dounia was saying, I think something that is really cool about co-ops is that they're always kind of reflecting on, like we're always reflecting on our own practice, on how we operate, and like when new people come in, that allows for like shift and change and reform. So there's nothing's fixed, and it's always kind of open to like new ideas, new people, new perspectives. And I think, yeah, that's something we haven't been able to put into practice this year. It's kind of just been sort of the five of us running the co-op, which isn't really how co-ops work. But yeah, ideally you'd have, you know, you're kind of, by having this cooperative organizing, you're representing as many people as equally as possible, which essentially should account for the best outcomes in food systems, in housing systems, in whatever you're cooperatively organizing around. So yeah, I think that's definitely the power of co-ops. I can't believe how well this has turned out. Like, this looks like custard, and it's what actually normally goes into custard, like non-vegan custard.
There's eggs. Like in really traditional custard, there's eggs. Like it's basically the same ingredients plus eggs.
And normal milk, I guess.
Yeah, normal milk. Dairy milk. There's no normal about it. Yuck. Melly, what do you think of the custard? Melly's.
I've never had custard before. Hi everyone.
It's been enough to lure Melly in that she's like, custard?
It's an interesting concept.
It's really good.
Also, I have a question.
A question from the audience.
From the audience. When you said like, because I think it came out recently that like the EU started banning people from using non-dairy to advertise vegan things. Like they can't call them anything that resembles dairy things.
Yeah.
Is that why you posted, I think, your recipe description was saying something about it?
Yeah, my little ingredients thing, because I was laughing that this is called a vegan blog. And I was like looking at it and I was like, is this butter? Like, can I use this to make a crumble?
Yeah, because there's that whole debate about like, can you call vegan sausages and stuff like that?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I think that's just an example of like the prominent like meat and dairy industries being like, we don't want you to use the entire legacy that we've built up to sell products that aren't our products. So you're not allowed to use this language, even when like clearly when you have a sausage that's like so extremely processed, like what difference does it make if the like 30% that's giving it like a chew is like soya or a cow? I don't know
if you've had these controversies in the UK as well, but I remember very distinctly, like maybe 5-7 years ago in France, we had this situation where a brand had put horse meat instead of beef in lasagna that they sold, and it was like a big national scandal. So sometimes like something you call a sausage is not even a sausage of what you would think. So it's like, it's just like a matter of, yeah, the industry trying to preserve itself as long as it can. It's very silly and doesn't really stand as an argument.
Yeah. Also, like, just for our national equivalent, the horse meat scandal of 2014, I'm gonna say, was it then? I remember being in like the early years of school.
Also, I'm just like, I haven't had dinner yet, but do I just have crumble for dinner, like, or do I reheat it? Like, what?
Okay, I say have crumble for dinner, but I have my own personal theory about this, which has been disputed. If you eat a pudding like with no savory base, I think it makes your tummy hurt. So I would say eat like my plan is, I have some barley risotto. I'm gonna gobble like 3 tablespoons of that just to set the basis, and then I'm hitting crumble hard. That's my plan. Public safety warning, maybe don't eat your crumble right out of the oven, because if it's like nice juicy fruit, you're like bound to be sizzled. Today I've been joined by the Food Co-op, and we've spoken about so many interesting things about cooperatives, about food, about everything in between, as you would maybe expect when we're chatting to the Glasgow University Food Co-op. So if your interest has been piqued by anything we've discussed today, over to Hannah, where she'll tell you about how you can get involved.
Yeah, so the main way to kind of stay up to date with everything we're doing is to follow our Facebook page. It's just Glasgow University Food Co-op. And yeah, we post all our meetings there, everything that we get up to. And yeah, all our meetings are open, and we're definitely going to be kind of starting to post them again over the next month or so. We're going to host our AGM at some point in the future, so stay tuned for that. And yeah, even if you just want to like hear what we're up to and hopefully be involved next year with getting the veg box delivery up and running, that's going to be our main focus for next semester. Yeah, exciting times ahead.
Perfect. Well, I want to say thank you to the entire Glasgow University Food Co-op committee for joining me. Truly non-hierarchical, because you're all here and you've all contributed, so it's excellent. Enjoy your crumbles, whether they be rhubarb, pear or apple. I hope they're delicious, and for those of you with custard, enjoy that too. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us, and guest.